Thanks for checking out another episode of Basically Biblical. We have a recurring guest. I think Charlie, you are my second recurring guest ever, and the only other one I've
Nice.
had that has come on multiple times has only come on twice. So you are right there in the very very top spot as far as people that have
Let's
come back
go.
on.
Yeah.
So,
Let's go.
it's been a little bit. I think,
Yep.
it's probably been about a year, I think, since,
Since I've been on your podcast, yeah.
yeah. So
Yeah.
it's been a little bit. If anyone is not familiar with Charlie, he has a podcast as well. It's a Young Minds podcast. We've got connected a while back, through some side projects we were working on, and,
Mhm.
different things have happened with that, and different things have, like, kinda gone on, but we've stayed in touch, and it's been, refreshing for me to kind of see where Charlie is at, how he is growing. I've told him this in private, and I'll share it here. I wish at his age I had the fire that he has currently. I feel like that's something you definitely do not see, especially in younger generation. So before I tell your whole life story, Charlie, I'll let you. We'll jump to you. You want to
Uh,
give a quick introduction, just
sure. Yeah.
who you are, what you do, is whatever you feel is relevant.
Yeah. Well, like Jesse said, I'm Charlie Banks and I run the Young Minds podcast. And just to say this, me and Jesse, we actually live like an hour away from each other, which is
Yep.
pretty funny. And we literally this was the wildest thing. Like we were talking about like maybe meeting somewhere, whatever, doing stuff like this. No, we just see each other at a random theme park that we have in my hometown, just like randomly.
Yeah.
And I remember telling you this. Like I gave you the most uncomfortable, like awkward, just like I stared too long. I was like, "Is that who that is? Oh my gosh, it is who that is!" Like I was like, it really like it threw me for a loop. I was like, and then we just kind of were shocked. We realized finally we kind of got out of that. And we're like, oh, we're meeting each other. All right.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, and like we met through a couple of our well, I knew Donovan and all them. We were meeting through like doing side project things like that, and sure, all that kind of fizzled out, but it doesn't mean that we didn't keep touching everything,
Right.
and we've still support each other through the podcast stuff, and yeah, I told you before we started, but I'm getting ready to do my celebrate 3 years of the podcast, so that's you know and I was thinking on that, like, so many podcasts don't last even that long. Like, they don't last that long at all. I mean, some people,
Yeah.
they're like, you know, how do you do it? Like, it's hard for me to just record one episode. I'm like, look, it's God, okay? Because like, my schedule's crazy. It's even crazier now. And we'll get into more of that later just as we dive into the topic. Um, but it's been a huge blessing to do this podcast and to do it consistently. Sure, do I, you know, sometimes, and again, I'll talk about more of this, but like I do, I sometimes feel there's a bit of a pressure on me. Yes, 100%. Because you're leading people and and you don't want to say the wrong thing.
Yeah.
And but I mean, it's so fun, especially when you like, and I mean, it's just an added bonus for me when you have your church's backing, like you have like your pastor's backing on like doing things, and they trust you to do things. Like that opens so many more doors up, and it's just like, man, it makes it. I mean, it's fun regardless, but like, it makes it so much more fun when you can get people like that involved in doing stuff like this. So yeah,
Oh, for
you know,
sure. And that's something, I think I'd mentioned to you before too. Like that is a a huge blessing, which I know you see that for what it is, but
yeah,
to have a local fellowship where you're plugged in at that sees what you're doing and sees it as a positive and is actually behind you with it and trying to help you with that too is a huge thing. I know so the topic go ahead and throw out there and then we can kind of start walking through this. But the topic that you had mentioned wanting to talk about today, and I think is an interesting one,
hmm
um, is the idea of you said you feel like God has recently been kind of working on you this idea of staying close to Him while growing up in our current society, our culture,
yeah,
the world that we live in, and you're at an we were talking about this really shortly before we started, but you're at an interesting point that I think is never it's never easy for people to navigate the last time you were on, you were still in high school. I don't think you had
Uh-huh.
graduated yet.
Yeah.
And so you've still really fresh out of high school. You're kind
Yeah.
of just starting to get into, um, um, I guess technically
The real world, as
adulthood.
they say.
Yeah,
Yeah. Uh-huh.
and so
Yeah.
that by itself can be difficult to navigate, but then throw on top of it doing it as a believer and trying
Uh-huh.
to walk out
Yeah.
all of that. So, maybe what are some of the first things that you really noticed as this transition has gone on, as far as things trying to pull you away or draw your attention, or where did this really start popping up for
Yeah.
you first?
Well, one of the things that I noticed was like, when it came to like, when you first get out of high school, you get that number one question, what are you doing now? Which I hate it. I hate it so bad because like I just graduated, like, and they, I get it. People want to know, and that's great. You're interested in what's going to happen to me next. However, I really didn't like that question because like not everybody's gonna have it figured out. Especially now, I feel like my generation's like some people they knew what they were doing, they were going to college or whatever, but a lot of us did not. We just didn't.
Yeah.
We were like, let's revel in being graduated for a bit. Like, can we do that? Like, um, and like I really, I hated that question for so long. Still kind of do, even though I've got like, you know, like it's still kind of I'm like working those steps, and I've got like a job now and things like that. But still, I still don't like that question because it's like, God can change things on a dime.
Oh yeah.
It's like I, and I try not to ask that to people that have, graduated past, like, after me. I'm like, I try to word it at least differently because I know it's like I would get so tired of it. And that's just being honest. I would, and I knew they meant well, like people would
Yeah.
mean well by it and things, you know, but that's already going through my head is like, okay, what am I going to do next? Because like I've been in this routine of, from pre-K to to a senior in high school, going to school. So what's next? And it's such a weird like 18 to 25 is such a weird like age range, like because I've got friends who literally I was just in one of their weddings, right? They just got married. They're my age, by the way, and they just got married, which praise God for them. They're great, but but then you've got some people that are just got the first job like me or whatever. And so there's, like we're all doing different things, right?
Yeah.
I was so used to, in high school or not really in high school, it was like middle school to um, elementary. We were all in the same boat. We were doing the same stuff, but then high school was when it starts shifting because you've got dual enrollment classes, people are already in college, all that
Yeah.
stuff. So some of that started creeping in even before I graduated, but after I graduated, it was like, whoa, like like, and then you feel like you're behind, right?
Yeah.
And for the longest time, I feel like the devil used that in so many ways. Like, I mean, I'll tell you right now, he don't use like, for me at least, he doesn't use like, a lot of physical stuff. He uses the mind up here for me because he knows that I think too much. Like
Yeah.
I get anxious, whatever. He uses that a ton. Um, and, so I would just, it would really, and I told this to somebody right before I got my job. I said, no, I feel like I've got to do something because it feels like people just they're like looking at me and they're like, why are you not doing anything? Even though I was doing the podcast, I was doing that consistently and like, serving where I could, things like that. But it felt like, and nobody was saying it, but like, at least to my knowledge, they weren't saying it, but like it felt in my head. I felt like people were like, what's he doing with his life? Like, he's just sitting
Right.
on the sidelines. And, I did take a year, like, and I'm not doing classes right now, which I mean, I'm planning on maybe doing like one or two, but like, you know, like I took a year and pretty much just did the podcast and stuff. And that was that. And that year was like, it was needed, I think, but also at the same time, it was difficult in that way because I felt like people were like, again, that feeling of, are people like really sitting there going, gosh, what's he doing? Like, it doesn't look like he's doing anything. I really wouldn't have a solid answer when people would ask me, what you going to do next? Because I didn't
Yeah.
know. And, so it did kind of bug me a bit, and just to like, I won't get into too many details, but like, there were some things like specifically that people would try to push me, and like it was in the right direction. I'm not saying like they were like, going wrong about it, but their way of like talking to me about it, things like that, it was seemed a bit more hostile than it was encouraging. It's like, I already don't want to do this thing, right? And
Yeah.
you're kind of like laying it on real thick, and I'm like, I get it. I do. Okay. Cause it's gonna, this thing or whatever would help me forward in life, which it did. But I had to take my own initiative and do it when I was ready to do it. And like, cause I mean, people were like, they just didn't understand. It's like, well, why don't you do it now? And I was like, I'm just not, I like mentally, I was not ready for it. Like, and I had to prepare for it. And like, sure, it did get me further on. That's why I have a job now and things. But, people just need to see where people are at. That's what I would say is like, hey, people are in different stages of their life and they're not just going to do things like this, when they get out of high school, or whatever. It may take them a little bit longer than, like they're not going to just go out and do the next thing once they graduate, and
Yeah.
yeah.
No, I get that. And like, like I said at the onset, I've told you before, I wish I had I wish I had the fire that you had now when I was your age. And I'm even thinking back to like when I first graduated high school, it was very much a feeling of it was weird because it like you kind of talked about, you go from having all of this structure and everything planned out, and you have like set, like you're at school at this time, you go through until this time, and then even after school a lot of times like everything that you have is is set. um and so there's a there's a freedom that comes from not being in that anymore, but there's also a big challenge in that freedom. um I know with me there was a Um, something that it was a struggle for me and ended up being more of a struggle, I think, at this point. So I've talked a little bit about on my channel. I've had issues with addiction to pornography before, and so
Hmm.
I know
Yeah.
that was one thing. I didn't realize that that aspect of my life would become so much more difficult after school, just because
Mm.
there's a saying dealing with addiction that was it idle hands are the devil's playground. So, and it's the idea, like if you keep busy, it's a lot easier to resist temptation and things like that, because then you constantly have something that you're doing. And even if you have a thought that pops up or something shows up in your face or whatever, you're busy, so you can move on from it. And so just that freedom brings a lot of different challenges that weren't there, or it magnifies challenges that were there. Um, with and I know where we are at now in our culture is a lot different than where it was when I was coming out of high school. I know there's a lot of other challenges that you and young
Mm.
people in your shoes or close to your age are going to have, that really are not even been thought of beyond the last maybe like 3 or 4 years.
Right. Yeah.
What do you think, I think that with the differences that we have, I think there's gonna be positives and negatives. There are gonna be things that
Mhm.
are good, that are gonna be benefits that really no other generation has had. There's gonna be things that are negative, that are drawbacks that really no other generation has had to deal with. What do you think, from your perspective, what you've gone through so far, what do you think maybe are some one of each of those? What do you think is going to be something that's going to be really good, and something that maybe is not going to be so great? I have an idea of some things, but I'm
Mm.
interested in your perspective, actually, like
Yeah.
walking it out.
Right. Well, just to bring up recent events, one thing that I'm seeing some positive things through is, it's a weird thing, but God can turn bad things into good things. With Charlie Kirk's assassination, right? It was a big thing, right? But
Yeah,
I've never seen so many people like, and I hope it stays this way. But so many people I saw on social media, they're like, I'm going to church or get a Bible for like the first time in like 10 years or so. And like, you had people like, they were trying to oppose it, whatnot. Why do we, my thing is like, why do we always, I'm sure, we obviously have to be critical on like, if something's just wrong, right? Like be critical about it. But why do we have to down that? Like it's a positive thing. Let it be, right? Like,
yeah,
you know, um, and sure, like look, Charlie was just like the rest of us. He was, he was human, so he might have said some things that people didn't agree with or whatever. look, we probably had different food choices, all right? But like he might have liked pineapple on pizza, okay? And we might have disagreed. But like, so what? We're human. We're going to disagree, right? But the thing about it
Yeah.
is, I think God's using that in a mighty way, not just in my generation, but I mean, for sure, my generation, because He was one of our voices, right? At least on the right side, right?
Yeah.
Um, but just in a lot of generations, like people are like, man, this impacted me in so many different in a way that I just don't know why, you know. Um, and I've talked about it on my podcast already. We said that, because if you're a Christian, he was one of your brothers, right? And but you see him on your screen all the time, doing his things, preaching the gospel to people, talking to people, going to the trenches that we would be like, we'd be like, yeah, God send me there, but I'm really scared to go there and
Right.
talk to these people. Um, but he was actively doing it. And then I will say, for like my perspective on that though, like two things popped in my head. Was one, it was a minor thing. It was just kind of really a funny thing. We share the same first name, so it was kind of weird hearing my first name blasted all over social, like all over the
Yeah.
news, for at least a week or two. And then two, it kind of, and it didn't really rattle me, I guess, but in some ways it kind of did, I guess, because me and him do a similar thing. We have conversations with people. Like mine are as conversational. Sure, they may get that way one day. I don't know, but like it did kind of rattle me in a way because like his whole stick was just having a conversation, and
Yeah.
that's what we're doing right now. And it's like he was killed for having a conversation. It just kind of like it did kind of settle in after a few days. I was like, man, like this is what we're doing, but also we have to keep going though, and that's one of the things that's been in the back of my head. Like we have to keep doing and double down on it. Let's keep
Yeah.
rolling it with it and keep doubling down. But that'd be a positive thing. But a negative thing, I don't know why. This this is probably just like out of left field. I don't know why it popped up like in my brain, but um, like the AI stuff, bro. That's gonna be like the death of the death of us. And I say that kind of jokingly, but I mean, it's getting to the point where even people like me that know technology and like see it all the time, it's getting hard for me to even figure out what's real and what's fake. Like I'm the person that I would have to. I remember the person that my mom and dad would come to and say if this is real or fake, but I'm like I don't know, you
Yeah.
know, and and that's scary as is because like what if somebody took this conversation right here and then was able to get because there's enough content of me and you online to take our faces, take our voices, and like make us say something we didn't say, just
Yeah.
as an example. And so it's like I don't like that, like one bit. It's like,
Yeah.
whoa, am I going to get my my likeness copyrighted just because of AI stuff? Like, I really don't want to have to do that to get my face copyrighted. All right,
Yeah.
like, and again, we kind of laugh at it now, but I mean, people are doing some crazy stuff with it. Like, some of it's funny, yes, but some of it not so much. You know?
Yeah. So um I'm in the process, and people that watch my content are aware. But I'm in the process of writing a book. I have already
Hmm.
written one book, and I was struggling to try to get the audio book of the first book done because there are so many like different parameters that the audio has to fit into, and it's got to be perfectly set and all this stuff, and it's a headache. But
Hmm.
I had the idea there is an AI software called 11 Labs, and you can like clone your voice
Oh,
and type in whatever. And so I wanted to see, I'm like, I want to see like surely like I'm gonna be able to tell. Like this is not gonna be like an actual clone. Like it may sound similar,
right.
but it was incredibly weird hearing, and it was like I mean I had it type in, I don't remember what it was, but it's something I knew I wouldn't say, just random off the wall, and it was me. Like it was crazy how accurate,
Mm-mm.
like it sounded
Nope.
exactly like me. Hearing myself say something that I know I never said,
Mhm.
um, it was very, very strange. Now I ended up not using it because it's hard to get like um inflection right. And so
Right.
like if I wanted to put an emphasis on a certain part of a word or a certain part of a sentence, and it was really, really hard to get that right. Now eventually I think it will be better to where it's a little bit better at doing that.
Yeah.
But to your point, yes, there is I'm pretty pretty well caught up on a lot of AI stuff, and I can
Uh-huh.
usually tell there are some giveaways for videos, or even like I've had conversations with uh like my dad or people talking about it, like, if you use AI, at least I think this is still the case, but it cannot generate an image of a glass of wine filled to the brim without overflowing. But the reason why is because it takes in like all the photos and stuff from the internet, and all the photos of the internet on the internet of glasses of wine, they're like three quarters full. And
Mhm.
so it doesn't
Yep.
have anything to register that off of. But eventually that will probably change. Um,
Mhm.
but no,
Yeah.
that is a scary thing to, if you really think it all the way through, that's a scary thing. Um, to go back to your first one, the good point, I would
Yep.
agree, and I remember, um, I actually remember when I saw the news that he had been
Me
shot,
too.
and I
Yep.
I followed Charlie Kirk,
Mhm.
not like super, super, like, consistently, but I watch his stuff. I followed him on social media. I saw several of his interactions with people, and it was weird, like, I didn't feel like some social content creator that I knew, like, got shot. I felt like someone that I knew closely and personally got shot.
Right.
Like, I
Mhm.
I had an emotional reaction to seeing and hearing it, and then, like I was telling my wife, I think it was either that day or the next day, like, he literally, like, it happened to him because of views that he holds that I also hold. And
Mhm.
he's
Exactly.
he's he's a father. He's I think he was 2 years younger than I am, and he has
Abe's
2 kids.
31. Yeah.
Or okay, so he's 4 years younger than me. But he has 2 kids that are the same age as my 2 youngest kids. And so, like, for me, it was like, it was crazy seeing it, but kind of like what you said too, it wasn't um, like a scaring me or anything like that. Like, I felt more resolve to, like you said, double down.
Yep.
And actually, I did a video. It was like 2 days, 3 days after it had happened, and I kinda talked about I'm gonna be shifting some stuff here up on my channel because I personally, I didn't, uh I didn't flat out avoid talking about political stuff, but I did to some extent tiptoe around it because I wanted my content to be only Bible focused. And I didn't want to touch on a political issue that someone would have a different opinion and then be like, oh, well, I'm not going to listen to them. And so then in my mind, I'm like, okay, well, now I don't even have the chance to present the gospel because there's some secondary issue.
Mhm.
But and I've seen a lot of other Christian content creators say very, very similar things, that they feel like more emboldened now to double down on the political stuff because realistically, all the views that we have politically are, they're just an outgrowth of our Christian view.
Right.
So
Yeah.
there shouldn't be anything like that that we're like sweeping under the rug or shying away from or anything like that.
Mhm.
Um, so that was something I felt kind of convicted over, and I decided I'm gonna make a change, with that coming up the end of this year and then going into next year. Um, you kind of touched on this a little bit. I want to get some more of your thoughts here, and I think it is um, it can be a tricky topic to navigate. I think specifically for people around your age, the idea of identity. And I feel like this
Mhm.
this ties in with what you're saying too. So I mean, you can take the idea of like what is like your identity as far as like some of the like far left stuff that you identify as the opposite gender, or you identify as an animal, or whatever like crazy
Yeah.
stuff there is. You can take something like that far, or you can take more of a Christian worldview view of this. Um, but trying to navigate some of those, I mean, honestly, hot button topics, especially being your age, trying to reach out, because a lot of what you're doing is trying to reach out to the younger generation,
Right.
people that are around your age, and so how do you navigate something like that with your peers, knowing how how big of an issue it can be for some people?
Right. I would say, like, if I was just talking to somebody, like, I mean, most of the interactions I've had, even before I even started the podcast, it was that they were respectful, right? And I think that just goes back to, and I'm not saying like I treat everybody like a saint, but it goes back to how you treat people too. They see that, and like they see what they see what your views are. But like, and this was like years ago. I could think back. There was somebody that, um, they like disagree with something I posted. Like this was like back in, I don't know, I have no idea. It was like maybe 2020, something like that. I don't know. And everybody was locked in their houses, so that's all we were doing is
Yeah.
scrolling, finding, and see what we were posting, and disagree, and be keyboard warriors, right?
Yep.
But it was a really respectful like exchange, right? I've only had like one or two like interactions with people that were like just either flat out weird or like not respectful. I mean, I had somebody, and this is no joke. This was in freshman year. So this was at the height of COVID, right? We come back, and then we're coming back to school. We have masks on and everything, and so I think I'm going to give this person the benefit of the doubt and just say that tensions were high politically, and that also just everybody's like nerves were up because all this was going on, right? So I'll give her that benefit of the doubt, but it was also weird because she barked at me not once but twice. That was a little strange. And I laugh at it now, but I'm like,
Like
at
like
first,
like
physically, like,
legitimate
woof,
bark?
yeah, like she
Oh,
was across the hall and she barked at me, and you know, in the I wasn't Christian then, so my first thought was, do you want me to go get you a dog treat or a ball to throw down the hall, like, and it was weird, like I hope she's doing well now, but like it was just really weird, like and so you will have interactions like that, of course, um but thankfully, and I will say, I think it has to do with I haven't had that many crazy like things happen on the podcast like that, like disagreeing with people. I mean, partly because I do choose who comes on,
right.
but so I do kind of, and like I do a mental background check almost. Like I don't physically like go see what they're, you know, what they've been up to, but I mean I do kind of a, just, and I pray like God, like, is this who you want me to have on, whatever, and like 98% of the time it's fine, right? Um, there's like the 2%. There's people that like ask to be on, and we kind of maybe set something up, and then I'm just like, mm-mm. But it usually we don't even record usually, or if we do, we just scrap it before it's even posted or whatever. Um, so majority of the time it's good, but like maybe like 2% of the time, sometimes you just it's like no, like I can't.
Yeah.
And I had somebody, and this was really interesting. Um, it was on one of my earlier, like I'm talking early episodes. Like I didn't even know you yet. Like we're talking episode
Okay.
24. Like this episode, and I talked to this guy, recently. He's somebody who like, he has faith and he had an encounter with God, and that's what we were talking about. He wasn't necessarily saved in this episode, but like he had an encounter, and I was like, I'm not gonna like say that you're not able to tell your story because I'm really intrigued about what your story is and what this encounter was. And so we were talking about it, and then like I started making shorts every now and then, and I tell you, I don't do them as much because they're a pain in the butt, but um, you know, I put a short out from his episode because it was a really good, just episode in general. Still one of the best ones I think I've done in terms of early on, right? Um, and somebody that was they are Christian and they were just looking out for me, so I completely understand it. They said, well, they messaged me when they saw that short, and mind you, the episode's been out for like 2-3 years at this point.
Right.
So they just now saw the short, and they said, why did you have so and so on your podcast? Well, I said, well, here's the thing is that they told me that they felt like they, need to come on, tell the story, whatever. And those are one of the best stories I've ever had. And I've had, like, I mean, that's one of the like highest viewed, highest rated episodes I've done. And sure, like, does he like always do the right thing? No, neither do I. So why should I judge what he does? I'm not the one that's supposed to be. I mean, I'll pray for him, and
Yeah.
we'll talk. Still talking things. Like I'm not. I mean, I'll say this. He's probably one of the ones that you would consider like if you saw him in church, you'd be like your Bubba, right? Like Brandon Lake put it a while back. He'd be kind of
Yeah.
like your Bubba type, right? But he's a really nice guy. We still talk, and we like and I think part of that, and because we talked about recently, because he just recently got saved, so on Easter, and we talked about how you know a lot of people they didn't see past the social media posts, like the social media presence, right? They they were like, but I mean, he was like, man, you saw past that. You saw me as a person rather than my social media post. I mean, like, sure, some people they'll post off the wall stuff, all right, for views, for
Right.
this, for whatever. But I mean, in that, I don't know, just in that, because I'm not always great at seeing the best in people, but just when we had a class together, I just thought I was like, he doesn't seem that bad of a person. Like, and we talked, and he was supportive of what I was doing at the time. I was doing a nonprofit at the time, so he was really, supportive of that, and never cursed around me or anything like that. Like, he was just an all out good dude. And so, you know, and like I've even debated having him back on just because, like, so he can have something to help break the stigma of like, hey, he's no longer this social media person. He's somebody else. Like,
Yeah.
people can see that he's different because God's changed him. And just sitting there talking to him, because this was a late phone call one night. He was telling his testimony to me, and I was like, dude, this is so cool. Like, and I actually saw him at a steak night one night, and just got to talk with him, and like, so my point to that is like, just because like you see somebody that had so and so on or whatever, and it's good to look out for people. Like, I'm not saying don't do that,
Yeah.
but also, because I mean, I have a feeling that person, when they saw that the Bubba type person was on the podcast, they didn't listen to that episode. Okay,
Yeah.
they didn't listen to it, or they listened to a portion of it, and that was it, and then they stopped. And so, it's hard to give you the benefit of the doubt when you haven't probably listened to the whole thing. And I'm not trying to be rude about it, but it's just the truth. There's, and I told him when we talked recently, I said, man, I don't regret like having you on. Period. I don't, and like I'll defend that episode till I die because it's a great one. Like, I love it. It still makes me like excited to talk about it, and it's a
Yeah.
different type of one because he's not in that Christianese, type of language, all that, and
Right.
whatever. And so he just lets loose, right?
Right.
And sometimes that's really refreshing. But because I mean, you're interviewing Christians all the time, and not to say that he didn't have Christian values at the time, but again, he just got saved at Easter this year or this
Right.
past, So, and so that it was really refreshing just to, to sit down with him, and I still think about it, 2-3 years, from now. So, that was one of my first ones I ever did.
Yeah, that's awesome. So
Mhm.
I do understand a little bit. I've had um I've had a couple experiences where there's one. It was early on. I was reaching
Yeah.
out to try to get interviews, try to get people scheduled because so most of my content is more like sitting and teaching through.
Right.
And so I have noticed if I do an episode where I have somebody else on, I don't have to do as much prep. I don't have to have as many notes, stuff like that.
It's true.
So it's easier. I mean, there's pros and cons to both. But that is something that's nice for me to throw in every once in a while. And so I had a thought, well, I'm just going to get a bunch of these done. I'm going to a bunch scheduled, and I'll just like periodically release them. And so I'm getting all of these in, and then there's one person who I really wasn't like vetting like at all. There was a couple groups I was in on Facebook as like Christian podcasters or Christian authors and stuff.
Mm-mm. I'll
Yeah.
never put myself in that.
Yeah,
Ever.
I don't
No.
do that anymore. So one person reached out, and I told him like, yeah, we could probably do something. And then I mean, the only thing that makes sense is the Holy Spirit thing. But so I asked him like, hey, you care if I ask you a couple questions first to kind of vet, see where you're at? And he said yeah. And so I asked him, I don't remember what all it was, but it came down to I think it was the Trinity or Jesus being God. And he said no, Jesus was a prophet. And I'm like,
Mm,
okay,
nope.
well,
Bye. Yeah.
that's what I told him. It's like, well, technically you're not a Christian and you're believing in a Jesus that can't save you. I'm not going to bring you on my podcast, but I would highly encourage you to find a good church, accept Jesus as God and as your savior. And
Mhm.
he was fine about it. He's like, all right, well, have a good day. And that was it. But no, it was like a wake up call to me too with that. I mean, at the time I had, I mean, virtually no audience, but
Yeah.
realizing that I am in charge of putting these people
Mhm.
on my channel. Like it's up to
Right.
me, and that's not a burden that you should necessarily take lightly. I've also had ones that seemed fine, and then we got in and started recording, and I'm like I actually had one. It was supposed to be a testimony, and I did this series. I think it was the beginning
I
of
remember
this
you
year.
like did testimonies like kind of back to back,
Yeah,
like you did that. Yeah.
it was, and I don't there was one of them that I had scheduled, and I started doing the interview with her, and the stuff that she was saying was just it was, like, off the wall, like she was off her rocker, and so as we're doing this, I'm just like and we had planned to talk for, like, an hour, and we were, like, 30 minutes in, and I'm like I just cut it, and I told her, I'm like, I don't know if this is really gonna be a great fit. I don't know if we're gonna air this," and, she wasn't happy about it, but I'm like, I'm not airing this, so and it was I didn't end up doing anything with it, I just got rid of it, but,
Yeah.
um, no, I get stuff like that, but I do think it's good to and especially depending on, like, what your focus is, I think it's good to show differing opinions, it's good to show people that are in
Exactly.
different areas, um, because, I mean, you never know, like, what's gonna speak to somebody, so, like, with the instance that you have here with this, individual, you had them on prior to them being a Christian, and
Mhm.
so now you have an opportunity to have them on again, and you could
Right.
even
Yep.
do something where you look back at the previous episode and, like, maybe
Mhm.
pull some points out and then bring that up as you're talking through with them this time and like, "Hey, remember what like this," or like, what do you think about this?" Like, if thing you said previously or and that can show they are no longer the same person. They are a
Right.
new creation in Christ, and that is evidence there that they are not the same person.
Yeah.
Um, so I mean, and you would not have had that opportunity if you had not given them a chance all those years ago.
Exactly. And
Yeah.
I can just tell you like off the rip, like he might post something every now and then, but like his posting's gotten a whole lot better. Like it's
Yeah.
like, and so I think, even if like he's just a lot more intentional about it and conscious about like, like about what he posts and things. Cause I mean that does make an impact, of course. And we know that being content creators, what you put out
Yeah.
there impacts people,
Oh, yeah.
regardless if it's just one person, right?
Yeah.
And so yeah.
Oh, for
But it
sure.
mhm,
So, kind of on the same vein, we're talking about, um, making content, kind of getting into a habit with doing some of this stuff. Um, other than your content creating with
mhm,
the spot that you're in currently with your life, what would you say are some good practices that you've gotten into daily
mhm.
that help
Mm.
you to make sure that you are actually keeping that connection, that keeping you're tending to your relationship with God to
Mhm.
where you're making sure that you're not you're not allowing your your head to get too big on anything. You're
Right.
not allowing anything like that to go to your head. You're staying focused on I've brought up several times recently on my podcast as I'm going through doing the Bible in a year. Um, my goal is there's a quote from some early church father. I don't remember who it is. I always forget it. I look it up after the fact and I always forget who it was. But
Mhm.
the quote is preach the gospel, die, be forgotten. Like as Christians, that should be our goal. It's not to make a platform for me. It's not to make sure that my name is remembered. It's to preach the gospel to as many people as I possibly can and plant as many seeds as I possibly can and allow the Holy Spirit to do their work and not focus on me or a legacy for me or anything like that. What is
Right.
something that are some things that you do daily in your everyday that helps you to
Mhm.
like really focus on that relationship and keep that as your priority?
Well, I'll tell you one thing that's really helped is accountability. That's number one right there. Um, you know, the person that actually went to that wedding was actually my accountability partner. That was it was his wedding, and let me tell you, that was one of the best things. I remember, just a quick testimony here for this. Like, I remember one night I called him. I said, dude, like, or I texted him. I said, if you got a minute, like today or tomorrow, by the way, it's like this time, like it's like around like 9 o'clock, at
Yeah.
night, right? And I told him, I said, hey, like, if you got a minute to, today or tomorrow, like, let me know if he got time to talk, whatever. He calls me right then. And so, like, I mean, it was literally instant. Like, it was
Yeah.
instant like that. And, because again, at that point, like we kind of knew each other like from a D now. He came over to my house, but that was kind of the extent of our relationship. Thought he was a cool dude, whatever. I had him on the podcast like at that point, but that was kind of it. And then, we started talking. I was like, bro, I'm sick of this like sin that I'm like stuck in, and like sure, I'm still like right now, I'm still trying to get through it. But like this accountability, having that friendship, and because we remind each other to read every day, so that's one of the daily things that we do. And also we talk every single week, so we talk on the phone every week. And we this is going to sound insane, like people were like, there's no way you did this, but we did. So like he was on his honeymoon recently for a week. We texted each other every single day to make sure we read, like every single day. And people were like, no way you text him on his honeymoon. I was like, listen, it's a spiritual thing. If it was anything else, I wouldn't have texted him about it, okay?
Yeah.
you know um but like, and that, I'll tell you, it may take you a little bit to get a good accountability partner, because I will tell you, and this is no shade to anybody, but I'm sorry, but I've had some lousy ones. Like I was the only one pulling the weight, like,
Yeah.
and it's just the truth. Now, and this was just what I've kind of picked up, and what's worked for me with that is that, um, it can be somebody you've known for a long time. It can. However, what was cool about with mine was that, like I said, we really didn't have a relationship like too much, so we were friendly with each other or whatnot, and respected each other. But then this happened, and so we were able to build our friendship off of this accountability and stuff rather than having something pre-existing, and that's why I think it's consistent. That's why we keep it up, and also like and like this is gonna sound like such like a sad thing, but like we're like, a lot of our friends are off at college, or with him getting married, he's just like, he's got friends, but not like close ones.
Yeah.
And so like we kind of need each other right now, and so that's why we're like, hey, we need these talks. We need to we need to remind each other to read. And it's like, it's one of the best relationships I have, like, and I have had. Like, I'll say, for like, I'm in a good spot when it comes to like my friendships right now, which is, I'm probably in one of the best spots I've been in. For and like, and just because I've got like my best friends up at college right now, but like we literally talked last night. Like, I mean, you know, so if you want to keep up with people, you will make time for it. Like I get,
Yeah.
just because your friends off at college or this or that and the other, you'll make time for them if you really care about them. All right. And so like me and my best friend, we've not even, like, we can literally like probably not talk for like a few weeks, and then we don't even miss a beat. Right.
Right.
So that's another thing I'd say, like daily or weekly or whatever. You can't sit in your head and like have all these thoughts in your head. You got to let them out, which is why, um, yeah, I'm so thankful for, like, with with accountability and stuff. I'm just like, so that's why it's so needed. Is that like, I didn't realize how much until we started doing it. I was like, man, like, you know, it how much of an improvement, like, life has been. And even though I might slip up every now and then or whatever, I'll tell them, I said, hey, like, you know, I'm realizing this or whatever, or I need to start doing this. Like the other day, I think I said something about like, because one of the things that the devil like really convicts me on is like saying things on the podcast, but not me doing them myself. Right. So like, I can do things to help others, but then I don't do them myself. Right.
Yeah.
Um, And so, like one of the things I've like tried to start doing is like, put your phone in another room. You don't need it when you go to bed. All right, put it in another room. Charge it. Do what you got to do. But like, that's one thing out of your way that you don't have to worry about. Right?
Yeah.
You still got to worry about your mind, but take this out of the picture,
Yeah.
and it's definitely helped a lot. So like, especially like I didn't realize how much I was going to need that after I graduated. Like because I was like,
Yeah.
man, I was really sitting there. I was like, man, a lot of my friends they went, like because they went off, and I'm proud of them, I'm happy for them, but I didn't realize how much I was going to need it until. And like it's, I'm so thankful for it. Like, and I've told that my accountability partner, I'm like, bro, I'm so thankful for you. I can't tell you how much I am. And it's literally we've known each other for about a year now. I think like it's only been a
Yeah.
year, and we're that close. So that's one of the biggest things I'd say for like for daily, for weekly, for forever. All right, until you
Yeah.
die, you need
Yeah.
an accountability partner or a group. No matter how young or old you are, you need it. Um, you know.
Yeah, I think that's something that a lot of people don't think about, or they maybe they just undervalue the importance there. 'Cause, I mean, if looking back, even if you're looking at this from just a Christian worldview point of view, like we weren't made to walk this out alone. Like we were made to walk this out in community with each other. And if you think back to, I know it's not exactly the same now, and I'm not even saying that it can be exactly the same now. But if you look back at the church in the past, like a lot of it was a close knit group of people meeting in somebody's house. It was
Mhm.
probably closer to like a small group that you would see now, instead of everyone meeting in a big building. Now, I'm not against big like corporate buildings and having a large church. I don't see any issue with that. I actually think that there's a lot of things that the body of Christ can do because of that we would not
Mhm.
have been able to do otherwise.
Right.
But I think there are a lot of people that can get to a physical church building like that and get to where they are only going on Sunday morning, Wednesday night, and it's literally just like, I mean, it's almost like you're punching in your time card. Like you're
Yeah.
checking that off of your spiritual to-do list for the week. You're just going on Sunday morning, then you go on Wednesday night and you're good. Where if if you're doing it right, if you're in community like you're supposed to be, eventually you're going to have people that, and you touched on this, and this is something that I wish I would have had a better understanding much sooner in my life. Um, and I actually talk about this in the first book that I wrote, and the first chapter. The whole focus is on this. It is on um, uh, how do I word it? It's been so long since I wrote this.
I'm good.
Um, but essentially, have make sure you're surrounded by people that care enough about you to hurt your feelings.
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah.
like I mentioned in the book, I mentioned obviously I'm married, so my wife is probably the person I'm the closest with. I'm not even probably, she's the person I'm the closest with
I would hope
of
so. I'm
of,
just
of
saying, I would hope so,
anybody.
Jesse.
But she, and it's not because she always says things that I want to hear. She
Yeah.
very frequently says things I don't want to hear, but I need
Mhm.
to hear. And
Right.
it's good, it's of benefit. And that's that idea with having the accountability partner. And it doesn't just have to be, I know a lot of people, when you hear accountability partner, you automatically think of um like just for like a specific sin or a specific issue or something like that. And that's not always the case. Like you even mentioned, like, you guys checking in on reading your Bible. Like that
Mhm.
is I mean, that's a massive thing, you know?
Well,
Um,
yeah.
and
Mhm.
so just having someone that is, you give them the ability to call you out is
Yeah.
is a big thing.
Especially
But
as guys,
also,
right? We don't wanna hear the wrong thing. We're like,
right.
"Oh, we're right." No, we're
But
not.
yeah. But even beyond that, not just giving them the ability to call you out, but also like listening to what they say when they do say
Hmm.
it.
Yeah.
It's something that I think is very, very overlooked. I'm glad that you brought that up as one of your daily things, because I think that's something that more people. I don't think people understand how much that can impact your life. Having someone that
Um,
is checking in with you on a regular basis and that has your best intentions or your best in mind, like they want the best for you.
hmm.
Um, so we've got a little bit of time left, and I know this is a
Yeah.
topic we talked about the last time you were on, and I'm
Yeah.
interested to hear your thoughts some more on this as kind of as things have changed for you. You know, you've progressed, you're in a new stage of life now. And also just as our culture has kind of, because I mean it's been a year, but a ton of stuff has happened. Like our culturally, we're in a almost night and day from where we were like even just a year ago, you know?
Hmm.
So what do you think of as someone that has a lot of interaction with particularly the younger generation? What do you think we can see or maybe expect? What are you expecting going forward? I know we talked about this a little bit with you mentioned with the Charlie Kirk stuff, and
Yeah.
afterwards seeing all the people that I saw it too, people posting online like and like people that like it there are people that I follow on regularly that I know are not Christian. They've been
Hmm.
kind of outspoken against Christianity, and then this happened, and they're like, "Hey, I'm going to church for the first time in my life," and I'm like,
Right. Yeah.
"Wow!" Like, I mean,
Yeah. Yeah.
Lord. But even before that, I remember seeing studies that Gen Z and Gen Alpha, specifically men in Gen Z and Gen Alpha, are trending very hard towards what you would consider traditional Christian values.
Hmm.
And more than just having those values, they're actually interested in church and finding something outside of themselves, something that gives
Yeah.
them purpose and a drive. As someone who has a lot of interactions with younger people like this,
Hmm.
what do you see? And maybe because of that, what are you expecting to see going forward in the next 2, 5, 10 years? What do you
Um.
think?
Well, I would, for one thing, I mean, one of the things that pops into my mind is like this, the college campus stuff that we see, right? Just like, I mean, hundreds of thousands of kids on these campuses. I mean, yes, they're there to hear a speaker, but that speaker is being used by God, right? Whether it be Cliff Kineckley and his son, whether it be Bryce Crawford, whoever,
Yeah.
or if it was Charlie Kirk, whoever it was. I mean, there's thousands of people that, that are here to listen to the gospel, right? And to hear these hot topic issues get debated in a civil manner. Like,
Yeah.
and I mean, it is so cool. Like, I will tell you, um, just like a couple weeks ago, my best friend, that's up at UGA right now, you know, and like I'm just being honest, this did not happen in our parents' generation like whatsoever. Like the fire, right, is which is not there. So I'm happy that it's in ours because he was telling me about how him and his group of friends that he's found up there, they want to, because UGA, if you've been up there, like it's surrounded by bars like everywhere, right?
Yeah.
And so, after the games and all that, that's where most people go, right? Well, their goal is to clear out the bars and spread the gospel to as many people as possible by the time that they're out of UGA. And like he was telling me story after story after story, just of encouragement that, you know, I mean, some of these people are like half hammered, like right, they're like really incoherent, right? But I
Yeah.
mean, they're sitting there listening to what they're having to say, and it's like it's so cool. It's like, I mean, for one, praise God for using my best friend in that way, because it's really cool to hear that, just that he's being used in that way. But also to use my generation in that way, and that I'm getting to talk about it. You know, it's happening 4 hours away from here, but I'm talking about it down here. And so it's getting spread of what they're doing, and it's encouraging other people. Um, but I definitely have seen like, just on the rise, like in social media and stuff, you just see it. Like, I mean, more people are just posting, like me and my generation posting content like this, or short, or like, things like that. Which I mean,
Yeah.
I kind of feel like we were doing it before it was getting cool, but now it's kind of more cool now, right? It's
Yeah.
kind of which, I mean, praise God for that. Like, we don't, because I mean, sometimes I do have to remind myself we don't need to get jealous. Like, just because we're all here to reach the same goal, even though
Yep.
we all do it a little bit differently, right? And like, it is so neat though. Like, dude, I've got somebody that's actually in my family on my dad's side. He's a cousin of mine. He started his own podcast, and he's a little bit younger than me. But I'm like, that's so cool. And he's asking me for advice, and so I'm like, come on, let's just bring it in the family. Have a bunch of people that have podcasts on this thing. Just don't forget about
Yeah.
mine. All right, I'm kidding. Um, but it's so neat though. I mean, just, and not to mention too, like, the young adult group at my church and the youth. I mean, we could average, like, in the young adults group, so like the college, whatever, I average like 60 to 70 on our meeting nights. There might be in the youth, there's been like 100 before consecutively. Like, there's been 100 like consecutively. And I mean, that's nothing to sneeze at. When you've got, that's on a weekday. They've got
Yeah.
school the next day, but they'd rather be at church, and, they're rather be worshiping and, learning more about God. And like, I mean, I'll tell you, we're in a really cool time though. It's like, sure, there's still negative things going on, a lot of crazy things, right? But we're in a really cool time, I think. And I'm, like, there's like, I'm still kind of split right down the middle. Like, my generation can do great things, but also they could just completely just go this way.
Yeah.
Okay. Um, but I have a feeling after this Charlie Kirk thing and just everything going on that this side is gonna, you know, take the steering wheel a little bit, and just keep this country on track and just keep the world on track. Because I mean, like, what people don't realize is what we do here impacts the whole world. People just don't realize that, and what
Yeah.
we do. Because I mean, we're looked at as Americans a lot around the world, like what we're doing. I mean, and I mean, I've heard, there's people in Britain that are starting Turning Point US, well, Turning Point Britain, I guess you will,
Yeah.
right, in other places. So what we're doing here in America is spreading. I just hope that it continues to spread. Um, but it kind of goes back to it reminds me of that question that I used to always ask all the time. Do you see hope, or are you worried about the future on the
Yeah.
podcast? And, you know, I'm still kind of split. Like, I feel like it could go either way, but I mean, in the end, we know God wins. So why should I be
Right.
worried about it? But that's just my flesh and my anxiety getting the best of me. Right.
Yeah.
Um, but I do see there's a lot of hope though, you know, especially like with my best friend, for example. He is like, he's grown up in church, but ever since I got saved, and then we kind of came along as in church together, he's really been on fire. Like, I think he kind of went through, and I think he'd be fine with me saying this. He kind of just went through the motions of church because he grew up in it, right?
Yeah.
But now he's out here at the bars at UGA and spreading the gospel to people. Like,
That's awesome.
look at that, and it's just
Yeah.
it's so neat to see.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I like to hear it.
Yes, sir.
So we're about at time.
Yep.
I'll let you kind of have a last word. If there's anything else you want to throw out there, or if there is anything else you want to throw out there, or any final thoughts you have on anything we've talked about, and then you can also plug all your stuff. I will have links in the description for everything. I would highly encourage everybody go follow Charlie everywhere. Give him like tons of viewed hours and listened hours and all this stuff. There are very few people I I will just give a blank endorsement to. But Charlie is definitely one of them. I know him well enough. I've seen his heart. I know what his desire is. I know what he's passionate about, and it is getting people to Christ. So I'll let you kind of throw out, like I said, Charlie, anything you want to last thoughts, and anywhere where people can find you.
Yeah. Well, again, thank you so much for having me on again. It's a blast, to always talk with you. And, I love doing this the opposite, because I don't really get to do this that often, or I get to be interviewed, right? I'm the one that's talking with people and interviewing them. So it's a
Right.
nice change of pace. But yeah, where you can find me at, I got a YouTube now. That's kind of a thing that Jesse, you kind of helped me like set that up and everything. So I thank you for that. Like,
Yeah.
getting like that, because YouTube's a whole nother beast. Like,
Yes, it is.
So getting that set up, and then of course we got Apple and Spotify. I would say if you really want to help me out, and it's free, all of it is, like, you don't have to pay anything. Go to YouTube and subscribe to it. Like that's kind of the biggest thing that I've been trying to push right now is doing that. So, and if you want a sneak peek at what future episodes are going to be, I schedule them and put them in a playlist so you can see what the future ones will be. And just praying for us that we'll finish this year out strong because I've only got a few more episodes left for this year, and then it's on to 2026. So, yeah.
All righty. Well, that'll do it. Appreciate everyone watching, listening, all of that good stuff. Don't forget to comment, like, subscribe. All that helps channel out. Like Charlie said, it's free. It takes nothing. It just makes sure that you are aware of stuff when it comes out, when it drops. And I personally, there's a lot of stuff I have planned this year as my hands have been very, very tied with the Bible in a year. I've been doing every single day. I make sure the video's out, but I'm changing stuff up for next year, and it is going to be very, very different. I have a lot of stuff that's going to be coming pretty fast once this new year rolls around. So you're not going to want to miss it. It's going to be great. Thanks, everybody. God bless.